Hey everybody, welcome back to Electric Cafe. Today's album review video is on Peter Gabriel's first album. A lot of people know it by Car or just the first Peter Gabriel album. There's an original copy of the vinyl right there, and then Peter Gabriel did a really good job of repackaging these on his own label, Real World. I think these came out in 2010 or so. Did a really good job packaging these. Looks like I forgot to use the free download. I wonder if it still works. I think it works 14 years later. But again, it's nice these booklets inside. It talks about the tour and has some pictures in here. Um, you know, really good stuff. Really nice packaging. Um, and I love these digipacks. These are like probably one of my favorite CD holders of all time. Just they fit really nicely in. When you have a lot of CDs, I have about, I don't know, maybe around like 10,000 CDs. What you're seeing behind you is probably a couple thousand, but I have a lot more in front of me and on the side of me and in my other room and everywhere. A lot of booklets full of CDs. But these fit so well in the in slots a lot more, and the spindles are less likely to break, which is great. You don't bend the J card. With the little holders on the plastic ones. Of course, the plastic doesn't shatter and break, right? Yeah, the corners might get a little rounded after a while, but just really nice, and they're nice and light too. Just the best package ever. I think these came out. I remember there was, especially in the late '90s. Late '80s. There were so many unique CD packages that they were trying, especially with like maxi singles, and there were so many different versions coming out that were more ergonomic or would look better in the bins, and they were sort of trying to get away from the tall ones that would sit, the tall CD packaging that would sit nicer in the deeper bins, and yeah, just a lot of different packages, and this turned out to be the best, probably the best one, and it's nice to see people still kind of, when they make CDs, still more line go with this than these plastic kind of these kind of plastic CD garbage ones. But yeah, so we're gonna review the first song, first Peter Gabriel album here, and then give each song a score, and then review the overall, and give the album an overall score. So track number one, Moribund, the Burgermeister. Strange name. It's really dramatic. It's kind of like a play. I like the keyboard sounds. Can't really deny that this is a good song. It's different. There's a lot of sort of transition extension sort of sounds and style, sort of from him coming from Genesis, right? This is very. There's a few songs on here that are very Lamb on Broadway, and sort of that period of Peter Gabriel's last work with the band. Genesis, it kind of has that kind of mid-70s sound. And a few of these tracks kind of sound like they could be in a play, and they're kind of like dramatic and, um, but lyrically they're fairly deep. They're kind of like plays and stuff like that, though. It's just, it's interesting. It's kind of, that '70s has a lot of albums. I guess that's probably because of like Queen and the Tommy soundtrack from the Who, and Hard Day's Night and stuff like that. There's a lot of '70s bands that sort of have like a opera kind of play sound, like as if they're doing like a musical, like a rock musical or something like that. And that was really popular in the '70s, and it's maybe that came from sort of prog rock as well, but um, A lot of Peter Gabriel stuff still has that. Even into the '80s, his stuff still sort of has that that kind of feeling like it's a play. You just can't deny the good that the opening track is a good track. I got it 3 stars. I think it's a very good track. Salisbury Hill, kind of a classic, right? Guitar, kind of a mix of folk and pop and rock. The lyrics and the way it's sung by Peter Gabriel is great. I wouldn't say I'm the hugest fan of Salisbury Hill. I gave it 3.5 stars. It's definitely it's my second favorite song on the album. Um, it's a classic, certainly. And I tend to, if you know me, I tend to root for the underdog tracks, and I'm not necessarily out there like Salisbury Hill is the best Peter Gabriel song, or Sledgehammer is the best '80s song he did, or you know what I mean. Like I'm not really in tune with the more popular stuff of artists. I tend to like try to go deeper but I recognize that Salisbury Hill is a catchy song, and of course I really like it. I'm still giving it 3.5 stars. But would somebody else say it's an excellent track and give it 4 stars, or maybe even make it a perfect rock song, or a rock song? I can't really fault if they did. But for me, I have it 3.5 stars. I think it's a in between very good and excellent. Put it that way. But I can't say it's really excellent for me personally, but I do respect it a lot as a track, and I know it's a favorite of a lot of people. So don't throw stones at me. I think that's what I'm trying to say. Track 3, "Modern Love." It's a good rock song. It works well. Um, Perhaps a bit straightforward. Take this with a grain of salt, but it reminds me of Steve Miller, and I'm not a huge Steve Miller fan. But just take that with a grain of salt. It does kind of remind me of Steve Miller, the way he sings it. But it's a good track. 2.25 stars. Excuse Me. This one a little bit too artsy for me, a little too hokey. Um, I think it's kind of has. It almost sounds like like a comedy skit. Like it has the trombone and it kind of sounds like some kind of like Laurel and Hardy like background song of the 1920s. Like I don't know, it's just a little too artsy for me. I don't know. I respect it as being different and unique, and in a way, I'm sure it helps balance out the whole idea of the album. But if you just heard it as a song, I don't know. It just doesn't really do too much for me. I can't even really say it's okay, just because it's okay for what it is, but it's just I don't know. I can't really say I like it. I respect it enough to give it a half star, but I can't say it's okay and give it 1 star. Um, just not a highlight for the album. I feel like, but it does work for Peter Gabriel. Don't get me wrong. Like Peter Gabriel is, he can do anything. Dude's the guy. I respect Peter Gabriel a lot, and he's all over the place, and his creativity and the way his mind works, and the lyrics, and what he's involved in, and everything on every level of what he does is how he presents his art and stuff like that. I highly respect his work, but sometimes they just don't work for me. And this is kind of an example of a track that does that. Steam would be another one that doesn't work for me. Kiss That Frog, that'd be another one that doesn't work for me. Um, Humdrum. I like the piano in here. A little bitter. It was little more dramatic. The keys are nice. I got it really close to being a very good song. I got 2 3/4. Slow Burn, also kind of similar. Also dramatic. 2 stars. It's a good song. Waiting for the Big One. This kind of adds some blues to the album through this song. Um, I think it's pretty successful, but it doesn't really do a lot for me. Can't really say it's a good song. I got it 1.5. It's a little bit better than okay though. The album ends on a high note though, for the most part. Down the Dulce Vita. Driving, it's a good driving song. Not like driving, but it's good rhythm driving. I like the guitar. I like the way Peter Gabriel sings it. Um, it's a good song. I got 2.5 stars. It's kind of one of those songs that probably, you know, again, I probably didn't hear this album till sometime in the 80s. Maybe if I had it in 1977, I would love this song and rate it like 3.5 stars. And I could see that. It's well done. But I can't get it over the hump and say it's a very good track. I just feel like it's a really good track. But I there's nothing really about it that bothers me at all. It's just I feel like it's nice and tight and cohesive, but it just don't feel like it goes over the top. I tend to like the more moody. Peter Gabriel is definitely one of the ones I like, where he's more dramatic. I like his more moody stuff. He certainly has some really cool beats, like Games on Frontiers and big was it big time. He has a lot of good beats, and I really like his melodic stuff, especially like on Us, and of course Mercy Reign's a great song, and he has a lot of great songs. I just tend to like the ones that are probably a little deeper, and Down the Dolce Vita is pretty much more a straightforward track. Case in point, Here Comes the Flood, my favorite song on the album. Um, the melody, the piano is like perfect. I just love the piano. It's got a little bit more atmosphere, which I think this album could have used a little bit more atmosphere from. Peter Gabriel, the way he sings it is great. It's just a great song. I was so close to giving it an excellent rating. I'm just like, I could go back and forth all day about 3.5. I gave it 3.75 stars, right under excellent. I could go back and say it's a 4-star track. I have no problem doing that. For now, we'll keep it at 3.75 stars. It's so close. It's such a. I really think it's close to being an excellent song for sure. I can't pinpoint on why I didn't put it as excellent. I don't. I don't. I don't know. It's got everything. I could really easily choose that to be 4 stars and not feel bad about it. But we'll leave it at 3.75 for now. Um, so looking at the overall good and the opportunities for the album, I'm trying to get away from saying good and bad because really shouldn't say bad because everything's in hindsight and retrospect, right? So looking at the good first album for him. It's kind of a good extension. Again, transition from the Genesis sound. You can tell how much he really influenced Genesis and really drove the band through their first, I don't know, 5 or 6, 7 albums, whatever it was. Like he was really kind of the guiding force. You look at like what Genesis did in like 81, 82, and you're just like, you can. I never really understood, why. Because I do like Phil Collins stuff. I certainly don't like Susudio and some of his certainly popular songs, but there are some popular songs he has that are good, and there's certainly some good Genesis songs. And but there's some really, there's some really not good Genesis songs too, and you're like, wow, it makes it. I can understand why growing up, like people would say, like, oh, early Genesis is great, and and really kind of not like the second incarnation without Peter Gabriel in Genesis. Some of them would, anyways, and then really the later Genesis of the mid '90s or later middle '80s and on to the early '90s. The stuff they did, I can fully see why they really dislike a lot of that stuff, and I can see it, even though there's a lot of it's catchy. But you listen to an album like this, and this seems like a good extension of Genesis work, and then you hear what Genesis did, probably around this time from '77 to like '82, '83. Like, there's some rough stuff in those Genesis albums. There's some good stuff too, but you know, Peter Gabriel was, was, well, he is the, you know, he was the backbone of Genesis. You know, Phil Collins was a drummer. I hate to say it, but that's how it was. Um, so yeah, it's a dramatic. It has some dramatic moments in it. It's kind of ironic and it's an ironic album as well. It's moving. The songwriting's good. Peter's voice is really unique in the way he sings, and if you're a Peter Gabriel fan, you really enjoy his singing. He's a singer that doesn't necessarily have a great voice, but he has a great voice because it's unique, and he does sing with a lot of emotion, and he's very aware of what he sings within the music, and I think of any artist, like he doesn't mince words. He doesn't say things that he doesn't mean. He doesn't write words because that's how the music is. Like when he writes music, like you can tell, like he's writing as a I wouldn't even say as a poet, like more of like a story writer, like somebody who would write like plays or something like that, and he writes the lyrics sort of like that, which is really interesting compared to somebody who just writes down lyrics and then fits them into music, or listens to the music, comes out with music, and then has lyrics fit it, right? Like these are much more emotionally deep songs in general by Peter Gabriel. Good use of a lot of sounds. As far as the opportunity, really not much. It sounds a bit too '70s for me. You know, that's a very small. You know, like 1977. I'm I'm 1 years old in 1977. Um, you know, so just I don't know what I really fully meant by saying it's a little too '70s for me, but that's a very slight mention. It's not like a huge issue. I can relate to '70s music, but I do feel like it's maybe a little too rocky, and the play atmosphere and stuff like that, and the that sort of dramatic rock opera thing kind of has a little bit of that. It doesn't really work for me a lot. Although again, I really like the Tommy soundtrack. I mean, I grew up with the Who. Um, Who are probably one of my favorite rock bands. I love Tommy, but or even Magic Bus, all that stuff. But not necessarily a Queen fan, though, I have to say. The other opportunity for the album, perhaps too many tracks that are whimsical and play like. Again, I'm saying that again, but Modern Love, Humdrum, even Slow Burn, and definitely Excuse Me. Like the middle of the album, or I'm sorry, not Modern Love. Excuse Me, Humdrum, and Slow Burn are a little too much play like. I mean, more the opener track, you know, did work in that retrospect, but maybe a little bit too much of that. But very small critiques on that. I mean, everything else about the album recorded, and I really like the artwork of the album as well. It's one of the coolest artworks I ever seen. I love the color. In fact, I always thought this was very aqua, but then when you look at the CD, it is a lot more blue. But it's probably just the coloring of the print, versus vinyl versus being CD. But this one seems a lot more blue than this one seems a little bit more like a touch of teal. But does anybody know what kind of car was in this? I know my cars well, but I'm assuming this is probably like some kind of European car, like an Opel or maybe a Volvo. But considering that color, it's probably like I wouldn't say a Triumph or anything. Whatever the French car is, the Lee car, maybe like a Renault or something like that. I don't know. Maybe it's a Mercedes. I don't know. Just that color. It's just not really a Mercedes color, though, is it? I don't know. I don't know my cars well enough to know from that picture, but Great cover, right? I just love the cover. It's just the way the bubbles pop up from the raindrops and the way his picture is sort of. He almost looks like a ghost, but then he's not on the shadow of whenever it's coming down on the screen on the windshield. I kind of wish the back didn't have this. That way it would look a little bit more ominous. Because then you sort of figured out, like, oh yeah, he's in a car. But in a way, it was like kind of like he wasn't in a car. And this one's just kind of an extension of it. Also interesting those days they didn't. Um, I'm assuming he's in the driver's side, obviously, because it's probably European. He's in the seat alone, so I assume he's driving on the left side. But interesting that the left side, even the rear view mirror, was an option. A lot of times in the '70s, with less inexpensive cars, the passenger side, um, like a Chevy Chevrolet or a Chevrolet Chevette, like the passenger mirror was actually an option in the even as much as the late '70s. Actually, I take that back. Even as the late '90s, my brother had a 1991 Civic. I think it was a DX model. But even the his mirror was an option because I remember he got that as an option. So even up to like 1991, like on some cars, like some basic like just like Japanese cars, but European too, and even some Americans, like that. Strange to think a side mirror is an option, right? But that's how it was in those days. But anyways, great cover. I love this cover. One of my favorite cover arts of all times. In fact, I love the Peter Gabriel artwork on most of the albums that he did. So the album, I added up the stars, 21 and 3/4 stars divided by 9 tracks. So I got it as a 2.41. So that puts it, in the high 50s. I gave it a little bit extra. I pumped it up a couple into the 62 out of 100. So I think it's a good album overall. I can't see it being a very good album into the '70s with what's going on, but you know, I think it's a good cohesive album, and I like the range in it, and I can listen to it all. There's not a bad track on here. Even excuse me if I rated it a half star, I still can listen to it, and it's because I like Peter Gabriel so much. But it's just I just feel like I can't give it a good score, but it doesn't mean I still can't listen to it and play it through an album and even like it. It's not that I dislike this track at all. I just feel like, um, but if you take out that track actually and divide the stars by 8, it brings it up closer to where I have the album, which is in the middle, into almost into the middle 60s. So yeah, 62 out of 100 on Peter Gabriel's debut album, Car. Curious if you have a top 3 favorite tracks on here, or which Peter Gabriel album should I do next. Um, Again, I'm sort of doing 1 or maybe 2 albums of various artists that I like, and then sort of eventually I'll do the second or third or fourth and stuff. But if you guys want something, done a little earlier, and you mentioned it, I don't mind trying to squeeze it in. Because again, I'm going to do them eventually, anyways. Especially if I have the album. If I don't have the album, I'll probably still do it. There was somebody who recommended I do a certain Gary Newman album, and I don't have that Gary Newman album, but I still reviewed it, so I'm about to do that today as well. So I don't mind doing reviews of albums I don't necessarily have to show you here, because I do want to do pretty much all the albums of artists that I like. But yeah, my favorite 3 tracks on here are "Here Comes the Flood," "Salisbury Hill," and "Morbun the Bergmeister." That's my 3rd favorite. So yeah, thanks for watching this album review on Peter Gabriel's first album. Have a good day.